Probably gonna be brief. Couple reasons. First, I'm sick. My family got me sick. If you have loved ones, you understand how that works, especially children. But this is the glitch, and it's essentially what the description says: a real talk break from the Matrix. When I say Matrix, I'm talking about the internet. I'm talking about kind of like our world and lives now, especially if you're online. Oh, excuse me, sorry. If I don't drink this tea, I'm probably not gonna be able to make it through this. Like I'm going for a half hour here, but it might go longer if people want to join. If you're on LinkedIn, um, in the event, in the comments, I'd put a link there. You can actually join in the Riverside studio if you want to engage. But if not, I didn't anticipate anybody joining this. I assumed that everybody would just catch it later. So if you don't know me, I'm Cedric Scott Jr. I like to say the junior because it gives reference to my father, and then also my son, who's the third. So that's awesome. But what the glitch is focused on is I'm going to talk a little bit about just the stuff that I know, stuff that's happening, primarily in the sphere of where I live and work and do stuff, which is mostly in education, technology. It could be related to, I guess, cultural aspects, what have you. But of course, AI too, right? Because there's a lot happening there. So I'll just go ahead and jump right in. First thing, let's see, I just got a random notification. I just want to make sure I'm checking it. Okay, cool. First thing, thank you. Um, Fee for Riverside, I use the $19 plan, which helps me out because that's where I do all my podcast recordings and everything for Black AI Media and the Road to 100. So yeah, check it out. It's a pretty cool platform. It's nice. It does like all the clips and stuff in the background. So that's number one for the glitch tonight, and I plan to do this more regularly. I don't know how regularly. I don't want to say it out loud and then end up being a liar. I try not to do that because I try to be accountable to people. So first thing is share information, like actual practical stuff that helps and works for people. There's a lot of noise that's floating around. Everybody's aware of it. You see it. There's plenty of stuff, right? Like all these tools and resources. I'll talk about some of the things that I've seen and just cover again. I only talk about what I know, and I don't know what I don't know, right? So I'm open to actually listening and having conversations with other people. Do it all the time, which is part of the premise why I'm doing this. Sorry. Okay. Help people, give information, share resources, and not just like the run-of-the-mill kind of blanket stuff. Like sometimes I found that like I definitely if you're charging for a service or something like that, I get it, and you're not giving away like all the secret sauce, but there's a lot of common information floating around. And a lot of times that stuff can be leveraged and kind of harnessed in a way that is not ethical, I'll say, sometimes. Like people will charge you for free stuff, which is not that cool. So I don't want to do that. Other thing related to that, on top of sharing resources and information, actually giving practical tips, things that people can apply. One of the main goals, or if not really, that was like the only goal that I had whenever I used to do professional development or professional learning, however you want to say it, for teachers, when I was, an instructional coach and administrator, was my goal was always for everybody, and even now, like some people who tap into this later, you'll see it and you'll recall from my webinars that I do. I always talk about one thing, right? There should be one thing in my experience all the time that people can take away and apply immediately. I just gave you one. It's Riverside. Like just a simple thing. All right. Make sure people can always take something and apply it. Also, with this, as I'm doing this LinkedIn Live, people should also know this type of thing. Um, if you're streaming wherever it is onto LinkedIn Live and you're going directly from whatever platform you're using, StreamYard, whatever else you're using. directly to LinkedIn, you can't get that back. As far as I know, if there's like a difficult workaround, I've done the research on it, and it was just a little bit too much for me, and I was like, ugh. So, you can't really pull that video. So what I'm also doing concurrently right now is I'm recording on Zoom to my computer because I want this information later because I've said a lot of stuff and had conversations with people and then we end up losing all of it. And we're like, well, we had that conversation last week and it was so great and we covered a lot of stuff and gone, right? Brilliance, ideas, everything out the window, and then you got to start from scratch. So don't do that. Record it and like capture what you can as much as possible. So that's another one. Couple of things related to just like topics and areas that I've worked in. Again, talking about education, we'll talk about some AI stuff. Um, with education in particular, thinking about like the job market, because I know that's like always been a hot topic. As far as like when I've been pretty active on LinkedIn and in more recent years, and somebody who's pivoted into like more of the ed tech space. Um, so here's a quick breakdown, right? If you're in the job market in education, right, there's a really simple way to break down two concepts. First concept is the difference between education industry and education system. If you're a teacher, school administrator, assistant principal, like I used to be, whatever, you work in the system, right? Over here. And this is the same stuff I give people whenever if I've done any type of career support or shared any information. And you're in the system, which is propped up, in terms of like funding, by, if we're talking about public education, probably the government, whatever, right? So you're getting some type of dollars that are fueled into that. If you are in that situation and you're trying to pivot, right, where I'm seeing things and where I have moved since back in 2020, I guess, um, is the industry, right? The industry side of education is actually fueled by the system because the industry says we have the solution to your problem, right? Your students can't read. Here's a program. Pay us for it. They're struggling with multiplication facts. Here's something, buy it, right? Like, so that funding is essentially getting fueled and it comes kind of, excuse me, not fueled, funneled over from one side to the other, right? From the system into the industry. Here's why that's important. If you're trying to make a pivot, you're a teacher, what have you, you work in a school or in a district, there has to be a little bit of a mindset shift and an understanding, in some cases around like business-esque type of information, right? Even like the job titles and things like that. There's a lot of talk about like the transferable skills, and people share like, oh, well, yeah, you can, transfer into, well, simple one, customer success because you do, relationship building and all these types of things on a regular basis. True. It's true. Yeah. But at the same time, there's a couple of factors to actually consider with that. Number one is we got to know what these titles and roles even actually do. Number one, and then that's in general. Number two, you have to know and understand what that role specifically means to the organization that you're even applying to. Because sometimes there will be a role in a job title that's listed or put out by an organization or a company. And sometimes that role, that job title, it really only means something to that organization and company because they created it. There are a lot of job titles that are just kind of produced. Like they're just, I don't say made up, but they're made up, right? So look at the description and then consider how does what you've done and been successful at, key, that what you've been successful at actually show up in that thing. And then again, thinking about the business context of it, if you're talking about relationship building, yes, building relationships with students, um, families, other coworkers and things like that, highly, extremely important. It's a little bit different whenever you actually start dealing with folks who are paying for something. Um, and I shared a post recently too, even talking about the difference between customers and clients. Customer, to my understanding, and based on what I've done and worked in product, customers are basically someone who purchases something and it's essentially a one-time kind of transaction, right? There's not really an ongoing relationship other than they're a patron of this business. Clients are more so getting services. That is an ongoing thing, right? So I got to see you again, right, as a client at some point, which is a little bit more of a prolonged thing. So it's a little bit of a difference in variation, understanding that type of stuff. So education system, education industry. That's a quick breakdown. The other thing in education related to the job market I wanted to share is the ed tech industry. Look, that people make ed tech to be like this big, grandiose, like cloud pie in the sky idea thing. Um, Kinda, but not really. You can split it down the middle. The way that I break it down and give it to people is the Robert Frost poem, which strangely like everybody knows. Two roads diverge in yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by, right? Like two roads, right? A fork. You have two sides to ed tech. You have the content side and you have the product side. Do you want to create or deal with the kind of writing and formulation of the thing, particularly when we're talking about curriculum? Or do you want to deal with sustaining and then maintaining and also the packaging of the thing, product? Just about every role that I've seen in the ed tech space and kind of broad education industry falls into one of those two. Because again, going back to system and industry, the system needs something. They need this thing, right? They need content or they need something to be shared over here. The industry is trying to provide that thing and say, hey, look at us, we got the best solution, right? When we're talking about product, because I worked in product, originally when I pivoted out initially back in 2020 for a few years, and then moved into more of the professional learning side of things. So with product though, the understanding there is that number one, people are actually really valuable who have been teachers, have boots on the ground experience, because you've implemented and tried and used things, and you can actually have a say in what needs to be done and fixed. So there's points of leverage there, especially if you've been in leadership or you've led any type of teams, because you really understand what it looks like, especially when we talk about like student data and all that type of stuff, right? So there's that content product side. If you're in ed tech, I don't know. I have a video that's like 4 minutes long that helps people. It's on YouTube. I'll share out the link if anybody wants it. Just reach out to me. Um, it's basically a breakdown. It's an exercise of how you can narrow your search. 4 minute video. I'll give it to you, send it to you, the link or whatever. I'll post it. I posted it a bunch of times. Hopefully people see it. All right, now jump into the next thing. Sorry, drink some tea. All right, cool. I'm working through this. I'm I'm sick, so bear with me. Um, Second thing is I just recently saw, as many people probably did, the school in Arizona that is going to be deploying AI teachers in place of humans for 2 hours a day, going into I don't know exactly when it started. I got to look at a few more articles. I don't want to misspeak. It was interesting because I've been asked on a bunch of like interviews and like podcasts and stuff that I've done more recently. There was one just late last year, where I was asked, will AI replace teachers? I said no. I even asked I asked AI. I asked a few different tools if that would be the case, and it all said no, right? And then I started paying attention to a lot of things and looking at what was actually happening in the market, and who was producing what. A lot of people were doing creating different AI tools for lesson plans and things that were supposed to save time, right? Or make things more efficient. Um, be able to produce more material, content, whatever. All great, I guess, to an extent. But if anybody's familiar with Khan Academy, they created Khanmigo, which goes a little bit further, and I was looking at that, was kind of intrigued by it. Um, so with that, a couple articles I read mentioned that that particular school in Arizona that's going to be implementing AI teachers, for 2 hours a day are planning to use IXL and Khan Academy. So my assumption is that, of course, they're going to use Khanmigo because it's an AI based like teaching assistant, I think is what it's labeled as. Um, Very interesting, especially when you start to think about like differentiated instruction, because that's actually listed in part of what the plan is going to be for that. Um, so I don't know when it comes to like all of AI and education in particular. Just AI in general. I always try to break this down too, and I was just having a conversation with somebody recently, and I was talking about how there's definitely validity to being on either side of this. I try to be like Switzerland and like just as objective as possible and really paying attention because I think it's important to inform people of all the possibilities, all sides. So the doom and gloom, Terminator, robots are coming. I hear you. The This is amazing. We can become billionaires. I hear you. I'm sitting in the middle. And I'm also thinking about the fact that I have a 4-year-old son who's about to be 5 and is in school. A lot of this is interesting and potentially beneficial. A lot of it is interesting and potentially very worrisome. I'll say it that way. That's all I got. So I'll keep looking at that and kind of keeping up to date on what's going on. But I just don't necessarily think some of this stuff, like a lot of it is slowing down, right? It just it's just not. It's just a whole thing. Uh, Sorry, tea break. Maybe next time I won't have to have this, but maybe I will just do it just because it's a good way to get me to like be quiet for a second and take a breath. Um, Also, I think I just should have got some should have brought some tissues in here. I don't want to blow my nose on camera and stuff like that. But a few other things to consider thinking about AI, AI tools. One of the things I really am interested in seeing develop and pan out is actually based on a conversation that I heard. It was Mustafa Suleiman and who was he talking to? Reid Hoffman, actually. Yeah, co-founder of LinkedIn, creator of Masters of Scale. I was listening to that. There was like an interview, and Mustafa Suleiman was saying some interesting stuff when it comes to AI as far as like agents go, right? Agentic AI. Um, and he used some interesting like verbiage to, I guess, explain or label it in a way. Like he used terms like new, basically new species, new digital species, I believe was the phrasing, and a couple other things like one of the top conversation, one of the questions that he went into, he started mentioning and talking about something about us thinking about how we engineer personality. And I was like, engineer personality, that's really, really interesting. Thinking about me being a dad, I'm like we kind of give parts of our personality to our children, but I wouldn't necessarily say that we'd like engineer that. So thinking about that, especially when we're talking about all these different bots and tools and everything that's popping up and happening. So there's a couple of things that I've been leaning into that I think want to be really are really practical that can help people. First thing people ask, well, like what tools should we really be paying attention to? Like what stuff? There's so much stuff. It comes out every day. Literally, there's a new tool like every 10 seconds. It just, man, and it's a flood. So it's like, well, how do we block out the noise? This is what I do. I don't know if it will help anybody or if anybody else follows this too. And I've posted about this before on LinkedIn. And I basically said that kind of I look at the AI sphere similar to what we see in like the financial markets. And the rule of thumb in like the financial stuff, if you follow that at all, is they say, oh, follow the whales, follow the money, right? What are the big players doing, right? Warren Buffett, like most famous, well-known investor in the world, probably, right? What is he paying attention to and like putting his money in? Like, and that's how people kind of leverage and hedge themselves to potentially win. Same can be said when we look at tech and AI, right? Where's the biggest investment happening? Where's all the growth happening? In charge of the market? Like who's leading? Just take a look at it. Microsoft owns what, 48, 49% of OpenAI? Do you believe in Microsoft? I'm not saying go invest in Microsoft. This is not investment advice or anything like that. I'm not pushing any products, nothing. This is all just me talking, right? But if I know one thing about Microsoft is that they've been leading in the tech space for as long as I can remember. So if they're propping up OpenAI and like pushing all that, then there's connections also with OpenAI and they're basically growing their ecosystem without really, from what I'm seeing, having to necessarily grow themselves. Like I don't know if anybody. I mean, I'm recording on a Mac right now. I also have an iPhone, right? The new Apple Intelligence, who they partner with and link up with. Like it kind of just like trails and tells you, right? So there's that. But with respect to, I think a lot of the tools and things, resources that we're seeing popping up, when it comes to defining the difference between, again, and I could be wrong, it's like people correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going based off of what I've read and what I've listened to. And I'll share a couple of resources and stuff that I'm tapping into that I'm like adamant about because I don't listen. I try not to listen to everything because it's too much. So I pick a few, and they've been pretty good. So yeah, first, all the stuff that we see being produced and pushed out, all these chatbots, all these tools, resources. If you've seen what I've put out, there's some different stuff like my AI personal assistant Rick. I use Chatbase. Just throw that out there. It's not a push. I'm not a, again, I don't even have an affiliate link or anything like that. But if you can do it, then do it. But if you need help, I'll help you with that too. Um, it probably won't be free, be honest. But um, so yeah, related to that, what we're seeing is a lot of like what you can call like wrappers, basically. So of course, with the rise of like custom GPTs and being able to produce those things, um, it's basically leveraging or using an LLM that already exists and just like changing the branding on it or like, wrapping it, if you will, right? And in a different um, case or a different, it's kind of like with your laptop or I don't know if y'all remember when we were in like high school, middle school or whatever, like the book covers, right? Like everybody got the same book, but and I know for me, what I did was I had to get kind of creative because I mean, some people don't have a lot of money to like go out and buy like the ready-made, you know, decorative covers. And sometimes you want to be more creative and you don't want to do that anyway. So you take a brown paper bag, right? And then you somehow make it into some type of contraption that can fold around your textbook. And then you have a nice brown textbook and you can decorate it to your heart's content. That's what a lot of the tools are, the way that I look at it, right? It's just wrapped. It's still if you pull off that cover, right? You peel off that brown paper bag cover, um, you're going to see the same thing underneath in a lot of cases. So again, thinking about well, where is this stuff coming from? What's the use case for it? And also like what's the point behind it? Like who created it and like why are they sharing it with you? I'll leave it as rhetorical. And you can answer that based on whatever situation or whatever the tool or resource is that's being shared. I share a lot of them, and as a matter of fact, for Black AI Media, there's actually a chatbot collection that I've created, just a bunch of different bots on different platforms that people can access for free. So Yeah, if you go there, I mean, I've set up some bots on. I started initially with Poe, jumped, of course, once custom GPTs were a thing into Chat GPT, Claude, not no, not Claude, sorry, I'm missing one. And then of course I mentioned like Chatbase is like a next step as far as like the personal assistance, which is really cool because you can train on your own data and stuff like that. But again, thinking about what you're looking at, right? A lot of the tools, what are you giving up to get to it? Last thing I'll say, because I'm at 9 o'clock, and I don't know if anybody wants to join me or whatever the case is. I don't know if anybody tried to or anything like that. But I think I've kind of exhausted this. Uh, I just shared a newsletter article today talking about data. Um, if everybody remembers, last year there was a big kind of uproar notification of privacy in terms of our data on LinkedIn, and there's a toggle if you go to your privacy settings that says that you give permission to LinkedIn and like its third parties or whatever to access your data for content creation, for generative AI training for content creation. So if you haven't turned that off already and you want it off, like go to your privacy settings and look at that. Uh, but I shared that newsletter really just more so to provide some, I guess, more awareness around thinking about data and data privacy. I only know what I know. I don't know everything, and what I do know is that I don't know everything. So when it comes to that, there's a lot. What I do understand though is data is the new gold, and I think about like an analogy of like the California Gold Rush. And it was always like this whole thing like, well, who made all the money during the gold rush? And it was like, well, it wasn't the miners necessarily like the people who were, trying to find the gold. It was more so the people who were selling the materials, right? Selling the axes, the shovels. So it's a matter of now of looking at like, well, a lot of the companies who are like pulling a lot of data, and I know this because if you've seen what I'm doing with like Cruted, for example, um, that's basically fueled by data, but it's to help people get hired. So it's a different thing. So maybe I'm in the wrong too, but it's not invasive. So just throwing it out. Since we're being completely honest with the glitch. But again, holding on to that information, and then you got to think about like, well, who's providing the sources, right? And who's because your data, I mean, people are getting data sets and stuff like that, and they're selling it. Like, so that's possible. If you go to even like I went to ChatGPT and just ask like, what are the uses for people's data? It will tell you, right, how businesses and corporations and stuff like that are leveraging your data and why it's important for you to have awareness around it. And one of the other things that was actually brought out to me, I'm not taking credit for this. Um, a good brother who goes by Nuvi Light. If you're not aware of him, I'll let him disclose his government name if he'd like. But he basically said one time in a conversation like, "How often do you go to a website and you just accept all the cookies?" I was like, "That's interesting." So now, like consciously now whenever I visit a website like I don't and sometimes there's like cookies that you have to accept for I guess for it to work or function properly or whatever the case is, but again, just something to think about in terms of data. So that's essentially the rundown for now. On the glitch, this is a little bit of a break talking about the Matrix, but like not in the Matrix. And hopefully this information helps somebody. If I can be of assistance at all, reach out. Probably easiest thing is, I don't know, send me a message or something. In my LinkedIn profile, I think the link that's there likely kicks you to my AI personal assistant named Rick. Um, you can ask any question or whatever the case is, within the confines of what my focus is and like who I am, and Rick will respond to you, and he'll also give some general tips and stuff like that. But that's not necessarily just like a rapper per se, right? So just you can go there. You can actually book a call and like schedule stuff with me too. So there's that. And Rick is the domain is actually cedricscott.fyi. So feel free to go there. But in the interim, I'm going to finish drinking my tea. I'm going to go eat some soup and try to sleep because tomorrow's Monday and we're back at it. And yeah, hope this was helpful. Peace and love, and see y'all next time on The Glitch.